Välkommen allesammans, very special episode today, needs no introduction, Kai from Heilung, the most known guest that I've had on the channel so far. He really needs no introduction. Heilung, basically the best music slash stage performance slash ritual in our whole kind of Norse spiritual community. And Kai was nice enough to take the time to have a little chat with me. Now, the reason Kai, I think everybody is interested in what he has to say is not only does he incorporate all of these Old Norse and Germanic spiritual elements into the music, but he is also very, very educated. He's very well read on the history. And not just that, he actually practices these things as well. He actually lives it, and he actually has some experience in a lot of the things that he's talking about and performing. So super excited to have him on. Hope you guys enjoy the interview. Side note here, just a little announcement. The drums on my website have been out of stock for quite some time now. These are not very easily available, but they are back in stock now, and I should have some very good supply on those for a while. They're the exact same kinds of drums that bands like Heilung and Vardruna use. Reindeer skin, calf skin, goat skin drums made in the traditional way and always imported from Norway. So those should be in pretty good stock for a while now. Just a little announcement there. But let's get to the interview now. Välkommen allesammans. We have a very special interview for you today. They don't need any introduction. Heilung, lucky enough, is touring the US right now, just a week after I moved to Denver. And Kai has been nice enough to have a talk with us about his tours and some other things. So thank you, Kai. And how is the tour going in the US so far?
Thank you for having me. Tour is going great. This is the last show or the last ritual before we go home again. It has been nearly a month. Of course, it's like a mission every time. We're 26 people, the whole crew. 16 of them you see on stage, and there's a lot of stuff to do. So right after this, I have another meeting, but it's beautiful. Today we were lucky enough to be gifted with the presence of some First Nation people who going to make a small goodbye blessing for us, as they did a super nice opening blessing in the very first performance, and I'm very, very happy about it, because that always gives a special energy to the night, and I'm always very, very grateful that the keepers of the land, how I got to know them, that they really do this for us and talk to their spirits for us. And it always gives a special energy.
Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. If anyone has not seen Heilung shows, you have to go on their website right now if they're touring, because a lot of my friends missed it. They didn't know that you were touring, but you guys check out right now where the next tour dates are and follow along. First, we wanted to speak about your clothing line, Old Norse. You've used, of course, it's beautiful things. We'd expect that from a tattoo artist. Beautiful designs. Some of it is based on the archaeological finds from the ancient times in Northern Europe. Some of it you've added some things to and got creative with. It looks great. And some things look like completely new. So those symbols, they're not just pretty designs. A lot of them have symbolism and deeper meaning and a function to it. So do you have maybe a favorite few of them that you like, and you like the symbolism of, and that you'd like people to know about?
One of my favorites is what I call the moon galder, and because that makes a bridge like really, really far. Of course, like we have the very extensive symbolism given to us from Iceland, but that is like really 15, 17, 1800s, but they're still working with runes, and there we actually have people who come from really, really old traditions, with runes and galder and all of that, and they write it down, and we can read it today. And of course, the Viking Age is gone by long when they write it down, right? But they still work with the ancient symbols and everything, and the moon galder itself is a new one, and it's based heavily on this like 1800s runic symbols, or 1800s galders, or sigils, or however you want to call it, but it still contains stuff that we really find also in the beginning of the first century already and stuff like that. So the symbolism that goes through the ages and survives Christianity all goes down to the Moongalder. So that's one of my total favorites. And then, of course, the logo, the Old Norse logo, is also the same thing, because like a lot of people say that the indigenous Europeans, that is Celtic people. So the horse itself has a very, very clear Celtic style, and then we have waves like of immigrants coming, Germanic people. You see, history repeats all the time. And they bring another mythology. They bring another gene pool. They bring all kinds of stuff, And it is a Celtic style. It is a very, very clear Iron Age Celtic style, but it also depicts something you clearly do not find in Iron Age Celtic mythology, and that is the eight-legged horse. While the eight-legged horse is something we find with the Germanic people and extensively described, especially in the late Iron Age, with the so-called Vikings. See, it's a lot of umbrella words I'm using today. And I love this eight-legged horse in general, because the eight-legged horse connects the circumpolar cultures. So when you go to Siberia, you will find myths about eight-legged horses, eight-legged reindeers, and you also find it on the American continent. All this myth, and you even find it described in old Indian, like from India, songs even, right? So there's some kind of otherworldly or worldly connection, whatever, but the eight-legged horse is something that is really, really special to me and very dear in my heart as well.
Yeah, beautiful. You guys check out his website. It's old-norse.com. Is that right? Yeah, beautiful stuff there, everybody. Check that out as well. So you've incorporated, one of the things I love most about Heilung, and I think everybody else, is they've incorporated a lot of different cultures, spiritual practices into your live shows. You've, of course, the Native American opening ceremony that you just spoke about, but then there's little bits and things. I know you've done things like the Eastern throat singing, and there's like Siberian type shamanism incorporated into it. If you could say like a couple of the cultures around the world that you have really drawn from in your live performances, which ones would be kind of at the top?
Clearly, of course, like late Iron Age Scandinavian culture, like Viking culture. That is something I dearly love. But these people they were not just born in Oslo and, true Norwegians, never left home, and like only Norwegian drinks and only Norwegian food and everything. They were travelers. So they went all the way to the Middle East, to North Africa. They even went all the way to what they called Vinland, which is nowadays America, or Turtle Island, however you want to call it, right? And wherever they went, they brought stuff home, right? So we opened graves in Sweden, and there's a woman in there dressed like a warrior, but it is not even a Viking dress. It is a dress from far, far east, and she's buried in a sacred Viking burial, right, in Sweden. And we go all the way to the north. We go to Tromsø, right? That is above the polar circle. We open up a Viking grave. What do we find? Glass beads from Syria, right? So, and of course, that is material things that we can grab nowadays. The songs are lost, right? They're just gone because there were no recording devices around at the time, and Christianity was very harsh towards the old spiritual songs. But we have descriptions of the songs, right? So there's this guy Al-Kartushi. He's traveling to Hedeby or Haithabu in northern Germany today, and he describes that these guys, the Vikings, that they sing, and it sounds horrible. It sounds like the growling and howling of dogs, and he doesn't like it at all, right? But I'm thinking, okay, the growling and howling of dogs, we know that they went all the way east, the throat singing in there is like for ages and so on and so forth. And of course, I don't have a scientific degree, I didn't study archaeology or whatever, I'm an artist. So I have artistic interpretations. But I believe strongly that what we call nowadays throat singing, that it was known to the guys and that they did something in that direction, and they didn't just come up with that at that time already, because if you look at Roman writings of the first first century. They also say that the Germanic warriors, they do something that sounds terrible before battle. They growl underneath their shield, and it makes the Romans shit themselves, right? So I believe that all this was around, or also because we know that the Huns, they come all the way to the Rhine, you know, and like names, modern day Iceland, Atle. Yeah, that is Attila in Hungary and everything. So the eastern push, you know, there's influence towards the people in Central and Northern Europe that we just cannot deny. That goes all the way to skull elongation, the so-called alien skulls. We find them in Mongolia and Siberia, but we also find them in Germany, right, from the same period, along with Runic jewelry and so on and so forth. So I personally believe that they also had a similar song style, and maybe it's just, hey, I was just with the Huns for a year, you know, listen to what I learned. We don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it that made you kind of course you're trained and you're an artist, you've done a lot of studying about the musical traditions and spirituality from around the world. What was there something specific about the Germanic or Northern European that made you want to explore that more in your music? Was it because of your ancestry, or there's something a bit more there that you wanted to dig into specifically that inspired that?
That goes back all the way to my childhood, right? So like I was born in Central West Germany, and there you have like the landscape bears a lot of marks from Iron Age Celtic times. So there's a lot of Celts being buried, and they did also mining there. And I already played as a small child in an old stone circle that most probably goes back to that time, right? And I was always wondering about like who built this, mom, dad, how did that get there, and all of that. And I was always very, very curious, right? And when I became older, I got in contact with what is called core shamanism. So that is the teaching that there are certain spiritual pre-Christian elements that go all the way back to the beginning of mankind that are globally available, and that we also in Central and Northern Europe, that we have clear traces of that. And like, of course, again, that is all gone, that is all cut and burned out by Christianity, but we have small bits left, you know, and I wanted to explore that, you know, and like preferably bring it back to life, because I saw, and I still see it today, whenever people get in contact with that ancient primal spirituality, it fills a void that they carry inside of them that leads to certain diseases and stuff like that, and it's really, really good for them, including myself. Like I managed to get to a point where I healed from shit where like a lot of modern doctors just gave up, and they said, you just have to live with it, or get some terrible hardcore medicine that is going to fuck you up, you know. And I got in contact with core shamanism. I got in contact with this thing that was with mankind for proven 40,000 years, you know, and it just healed me, you know, and like something that I was fighting with for a good bit of my life, and then it just disappeared within under a month. It healed and it never came back, right? And that was the point for me where out of this like curiosity, it was even more. I was like, oh my God, you know, there is something which is like really, really strong, which is really, really crazy, that is underlaying everything, and where I needed to tap into, you know, and I'm still tapping into it after more than 20 years. You know, it's very complex.
I remember you spoke about that before. Which one kind of came first? Was it kind of the older, most ancient type of shamanism, healing type thing, or were you interested in the Germanic history first, or was it both equal and they developed over time?
No, like as I said, like already as a child, you know, like I was very interested and curious about the leftovers that I could still see from my Celtic ancestors, from my Germanic ancestors. Also, like I grew up without TV, but I had a lot of books, and there were photos of Siberian mummies with a lot of tattoos and everything that fascinated me already before I could even read, right? But really, when I received that healing through the core shamanism, that really amplified it, that tuned it up, you know, that really rolled the stone like out of, in a much bigger level than just curiosity of where I'm coming from and what is this, who built these stone circles, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, perfect. So you and I are both old enough by now that we know what it was like before the whole Viking craze came along.
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, and before that, there was nobody interested in it. In the spirituality, even less people interested. Then comes a TV show called Vikings. Then comes the Facebook groups and the video games. And then bands like Heilung and Vardruna just blew it up to another level and became insanely popular. What would you say is the most positive things that have come from that increase in popularity versus the most negative thing that you've seen from your time?
Well, I tend to not label things, but I know what you're trying to say. For me, like when we try to dive into especially Germanic mythology, Germanic spirituality in the 90s in Germany, that was challenging at the time, because people could not see the difference in between like the symbolism that was used in the 30s and in the 40s and what we were doing there then, right? Because it had nothing to do with all the political stuff and everything, So nowadays people are much more educated, and much more open also in Germany, right? And I think that is a very, very huge step. There were so many people, like speaking out and teaching and saying, okay, like, listen, this is like our old stuff. It has nothing to do with the not so old stuff, And I think the general openness of the common people, of the public, when they hear the word Germanic, when they hear the word Celtic, when they hear the word Viking, there is not this like political elegy boost that they're getting. It's like, oh my God, don't look at it, don't touch it, it's dangerous. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember, yeah, that's the cool, the Netflix thing and everything, and and like even in the airport nowadays, my passport is wrapped in a black wrapper where it says Valhalla, Hall of the Slain, and like I handed it in on the way to here, and there was this guy. He had Indian roots, like he was obviously from India, and he looked at it and he's like, Valhalla? I just saw this series, the Viking series, and it totally fascinated me. What is this Valhalla? Is that a real place? Do you come from there? I'm like, no, it's a spiritual realm, dude. And we had this like long chat, like of course, like not as long as you have in the bar, but like he was working on the counter and he was like blah-blahing about Vikings and everything, and and that was just beautiful, that people have this like openness these days, right? A negative thing is people nowadays are still working on to understand that the pre-Christian mythology, especially when it comes to rune magic and all of this Seidr stuff and everything, which is very popular today, how strong it is, like it took me many, many years to get to the point where I had the courage to start teaching stuff, and I am still learning, and I'm still surprised sometimes what can be done the moment you tap into rune magic, and also what damage can be done. Because it is like really picking up a gun. If you know what to do, everything is fine. If you don't know what to do and you just pull the trigger, like when you see a monkey with an AK, that is sometimes how I see some people working with Seidr or the runes, and I'm thinking, dude, oh my God, what are you? But you're gonna learn, it's fine. I learned my stuff as well, people have to go through it, but I see a lot of stuff where I think, oh my God, like, wow, crazy.
Yes, be careful.
Be careful. Be careful.
Both of us.
Yeah, because like there's a lot of stuff that is easy to start and hard to stop, and we have very clear messages from the old time. In the Edda, it clearly says, be careful. Better not send anything than send too much. All of that. Read it again and again and again and again, before you start practicing. That is my advice, right? Because like it is easy to make people sick, it is easy to make yourself sick, but it's hard to heal yourself. And if you're stupid enough to like play around with all this death kind of stuff, you know, death is a guest that gladly comes to you, you know, but whenever he leaves, he takes something with you, and that is usually your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So last question, then I'll let you go. Spiritually, whether it's your live shows, of course, but even if it's just played on headphones or on a speaker, an individual person, people have used this for certain ceremonies. I've heard people using it for ayahuasca ceremonies, your music, healing ceremonies, or just their meditative states by themselves, day-to-day practice. Is there a couple things at the top of the list which you want people to take from your music, whether it be the live shows or or just listening to it by themselves?
Yes, respect. Especially you guys out there, when you start working with plant medicine, show respect. Show respect to the actual plant. Show respect to the cultures that bring the recipes, that bring the rituals, that bring the songs. I had the beautiful chance to like receive my ayahuasca ceremonies in a beautiful setting, right? And I had very clear warnings about mushroom medicine and all of that, you know, like I cannot stress it enough. Approach it with respect. It's the same like with the rune stuff, you know. If it's too much, it fucks you up, you know, and you're hard to repair. And when you come to our performances, to our shows that we call ritual, that we call ceremony, you will see this respect shown throughout the whole performance. You know, we greet each other on stage with respect. We bow to each other. We bow to the First Nations. You know, and we bow to our spirits. We bow to the trees. We bow to the drums, the animals that died, that gave their hide, that gave their skins, that gave their bones, so that we can do all this, you know, like respect and care. It is so important, you know, not only towards all this kind of stuff, generally to the people that are next to you, to your environment, to your neighbor, to your family, you know, like in Buddhism they say there's only two things that bring suffering to the planet. That is ignorance and that is greed, you know, and if we show a little bit of respect, it automatically downgrades these two things.
Perfect. Good note to end on. Before we go, is there anything you'd like the people to know watching? Do you have any other new projects coming up? Any tours? Any things that you would like people to know so they can follow you closely in the future?
Yes, of course. Like there is a little bit of live material. It just came out, and maybe, you know, there's a lot of things I don't talk about. I'm not allowed to talk about. Maybe there's some more live stuff coming out in the future. And stay tuned, especially in December. There's some amazing shit happening. Like really check on Amplified History regularly. There will be popping up some good stuff that I can promise and that I may say. And we will come back to America. We will do like this is our last show for now. Then we go home, but we will return to LA in December, and I'm not even sure if it's sold out already or not, but if it's not, you still have the chance to get some tickets. And the future is wide open.
That's right, keeping it vague, but keeping you guys interested. Okay, thank you guys so much for taking the time, and vi ses nästa gång.